Reasons why I used to be convinced I couldn't be autistic, even though I had considered this multiple times, and I now have had my therapist confirm that they think I'm autistic. They specialize in autism, among other things, and have been my therapist for 3 years. So while I'm not formally diagnosed, I'm considering that good enough. I thought that a fair amount of autism content included things that weren't really autism. And I can't say that that's not true. I do think that social media isn't a great place for like perfect accuracy, of course. But there have definitely been things that I have learned absolutely do count as autistic experiences that I thought were being overstated. A big one for me is discussion of small talk. I really thought that the whole thing of like, I really hate small talk was truly a universal experience, and that people who were ascribing that to autism were overinflating it. I don't recall really ever being told that I was rude or inappropriate. I know that a whole lot of autistic people have that as like a chronic pattern in their lives. I always had at least one or two friends, and I didn't have meaningful issues with bullying. Like, I had kids be mean to me here or there. I wouldn't really say I ever like had a bully. Both as a kid and now as an adult, at least to my perception, obviously it's a subjective thing, I don't really have weird interests or unusual interests, but I absolutely, in adulthood at least, really, really get into the things that I'm into. I have known for a long time that I have sensory issues, but I also have ADHD, and some people talk about how there are sensory differences with ADHD. And also, my sensory issues don't cause me to melt down. I am able to manage them. But being able to manage your stuff doesn't really matter for any of this, to my understanding, and I didn't know that. I thought that my difficulties with socializing could completely and exclusively be explained by shyness, anxiety, and or attachment trauma. And I do have all of those things, but they're just not the whole picture. I feel like I read people's emotions and body language really well, but I grew up in a chaotic household, hypervigilant, so I kind of needed to learn that. I thought that my social exhaustion of like needing 3 business days to recover from a social event was just normal with anxiety, and or like social anxiety caused from attachment trauma. And I think to a degree it is, but there's more going on there too. I wouldn't say I'm super inflexible with routines. I have some routines, but if something urgent happens and I have to like break my normal routine or like rapidly change plans, I can cope with that without having a meltdown. But also a piece of this, I don't really ever melt down. I'm an extreme internalizer. So saying that wouldn't make me melt down is kind of a silly thing for me to have said in hindsight. I come from a bigger family, and I was literally referred to as the easy kid sometimes. And I thought that autistic kids would have additional needs and therefore would be harder to parent, not easier to parent. I knew that I did things that some content would call stimming, but I also knew that people say everybody stims. And also, I thought that stimming and like fidgeting, etc., was easily attributed to my ADHD. When my therapist would call me neurodivergent, I thought they were using that term in the really liberal sense of basically anybody who has anything that's in the DSM can be considered neurodivergent. And I think to a degree they were, because they do sometimes use that term very liberally. However, I also came around to realizing that they were sort of breadcrumbing to me that some of what I was talking about might not be ADHD, and it was going over my head. I thought that my fawning and people pleasing was exclusively emotional trauma. Again, that's a tricky one because it definitely is trauma, but I think it makes a lot of sense that for somebody who lacks instinctual social skills will then rely on blending in through people pleasing and fawning because you kind of trust other people more than you trust your own instincts. I thought that because I could kind of get through social situations that meant something, that it meant I didn't lack the skills, that it was just not easy for me. Um, but again, that's not how it works. It is kind of having to put the intentional effort in that makes the difference, not whether or not you can put the effort in and then succeed at doing the thing. If you have experiences like this, I would love if you leave them in the comments. I wouldn't be surprised if I have other ones that I just haven't thought of yet.